Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. It is heard around the world as a podcast and on the radio. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars for the weekend. I have a loaded show for you today. What I'm going to talk about is how Ford is promising to steer us away from certain Armageddon and possibly the destruction of the universe itself. I know that is a really big claim, and yes, they're going to do precisely that. Meanwhile, Cummins is in hot water with the U.S. government, and they just paid one of the biggest environmental fines levied against a company. We're going to talk about that and what it means if you own a Ram yourself. We're going to get you all up to speed on that. And we're going to talk about funny highway signs and how they are going away. Yes, and it's one of those things that you think wouldn't be a problem, but maybe it is. We're going to talk about all of that. I'm going to give you my take on it, which might actually surprise you. So we're going to get to all of that, and we're going to play your car sounds on this edition of the show. And real quick, a very warm welcome to the newest radio affiliate running the Automotive ADHD Show. Big thank you again to the staff, Caleb, and everybody at KRLN, 1400 KRLN in Canyon City, Colorado. And we are covering almost all of Southern Colorado at this point with automotive stuff every single weekend, and that is very exciting and a lot of fun in my opinion. So again, big thank you to KRLN, and of course you can tune into the show on the radio all across Southern Colorado, whether it's on my home station AM 1460 The Answer in Colorado Springs, 1400 KRLN in Canyon City, or 91.7 KLZR in the Wet Mountain Valley, or of course as a podcast. You can always do that as well. Now, one thing viewers joining me on YouTube and Rumble, you can watch the show on video, might notice too, is I'm not in the normal garage studio. I'm on the road. I'm on the road doing work. I can't even really, I probably shouldn't even run the title, the intro of the show that says from Olympic City, because I am not in Olympic City right now. I am in fact, Palm Springs, California, which is definitely not Olympic City. So anyway, that is where I am. I'm doing the show from a hotel room here in Palm Springs, and I'm out here for some work. I kind of had to bring my video and audio equipment anyway for the work. So I said, hey, why not? Let's do the show out here in Palm Springs. It's been a fun trip. It certainly has been, and there's been some interesting cars. I mean, I got off the airplane and right into Palm Springs, and as soon as I come in, I'm passing Palm Springs Porsche, Palm Springs Lamborghini, Palm Springs Rolls Royce, all of which are far too nice for yours truly. I can't afford anything there. I can look at it. What I thought was funny though was we had Palm Springs Porsche, and then like right next to it is Palm Springs Hyundai, which I don't know many people who are cross shopping between Porsche and Hyundai. I couldn't tell you there's very many people, like, well, I'm at the Porsche dealer, but let me go take a look and see what Hyundai has first. Maybe there is. I shouldn't make any assumptions. So anyway, but we got a lot of stuff to get to here on this on the road edition of the show. And isn't that amazing? Through the magic of technology, I'm sitting here in Palm Springs talking to you on the radio in Colorado. Is it that to me is mind-blowing. What a world we live in. But one thing I want to get to here, and I might ruffle some feathers. So if you're a Ram driver, a Tesla driver, or a Subaru driver, just be advised. I'm gonna be throwing some shade your way here, because a new study came out about the worst drivers and what types of cars, what brand of cars those terrible drivers drive. And this is one of those things that I find interesting. So what I want to talk about is, for one, number one on the list is Ram. And Ram number one right now, and has the worst drivers, and they're calculating this by driving incidents per 1,000 drivers. And that's followed up by Tesla. Tesla's in the number 2 position, and Subaru finally is in the number 3 position. Maybe the Subaru drivers, maybe they just can't see with all the vape cloud and everything inside the Subaru. Maybe that's obstructed some vision there. And but going further down the list here, let's. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but Honda is kind of middle of the pack. So is Toyota. That's to be expected. Jeep, same thing, middle of the pack. Jeep, Kia, Honda, Toyota, all kind of right in there. Hyundai, presumably the people jumping over from the Porsche dealer here in Palm Springs to the adjacent Hyundai dealer. And then let's go to the bottom of the list, which is actually, it sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing because the bottom of the list is the best drivers with the least driving incidents per 1,000 drivers. And in the number 4 position is Cadillac. Number 3 is Saturn. Not sure how many people are driving Saturns anymore. Because I couldn't tell you. Pontiac is number 2, so that's good driving there. And finally, number 1, are you ready? Mercury drivers. And this is not very surprising because when you think about it, right? Mercury drivers, they're typically retired. They don't have much going on. Maybe they're going to the farmer's market on Saturday and church on Sunday, and they're not in any hurry. They're in no rush to be anywhere, and that could contribute to it. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the Mercury drivers with the Panther body Mercuries, like the Crown Vics, basically the nicer Crown Vics with the supercharged Cobra engines. Those are, I don't know about those Mercury drivers, but anyway, that being said, that doesn't surprise me here. Cadillac, Saturn, Pontiac, Mercury. You look at your drivers for that. They're typically older as well. They're going to be, a little more laid back. But I do have to talk about this. Going back up the list here, and if you're watching on video, you can see the list here on screen as well. But let's talk about Tesla. How are Tesla drivers the second worst drivers out of anybody? Because Teslas, they drive themselves, right? How can they be the worst drivers if they're driving themselves? Isn't that the whole point of the Teslas with the self-driving and all of that? I don't know. Maybe, and hear me out. Maybe it's because all of the bad drivers know they're bad drivers, and they get Teslas, knowing the Tesla will drive themselves, will drive itself, and they don't have to worry about it. When in reality, by the way, if you're, a lot of people, I think, have this misconception of Tesla and self-driving. It's not supposed to. Yes, they've kind of marketed it that way, but they call it autopilot for a reason, right? You get to cruising speed on the highway and you set the autopilot to just take off a little bit of fatigue. You're not supposed to be getting in the back seat of the car like we see people doing on social media, on TikTok. They're getting in the back seats of the cars. You're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be climbing on the roof while the car's driving itself. And all of these things happen. People go in the back seat of the car. The car's supposed to be able to tell if you're paying attention, right? It's got pressure sensors in the steering wheel, essentially, and it knows if you're holding the wheel, and it'll remind you, hey, hold the wheel. Hey, hold the wheel. Grab the wheel. And people do stupid things like making defeat devices that, simulate a hand on the wheel so it doesn't bug you. And then the self-driving Tesla inevitably crashes, and everyone blames Tesla for it. Now, I'm not here to defend Tesla, but I do think that's worth calling out, which is the fact that everyone blames Tesla. They blame Tesla. Oh, these cars are terrible. When they're driving themselves, they suck. That's not the point. No one seems, I don't know. I'm going on a little bit of a rant here. I will admit that, but nobody seems to understand that's not the point. Now, maybe Elon wants that to be the point one day, that it's completely autonomous, but come on, man, we're not there with that right now. And if you're not behind the wheel, I can't help you. I can't help you. I don't know what you're doing, man. I mean, I get it. Social media does dumb things. Well, to dumb people, that is. So, hey, anyway, don't go anywhere. We're talking more cars. We're talking how Ford is going to save the universe, possibly. That's all coming up right here on the Automotive ADHD show. Don't go anywhere. And we're playing more of your car sounds after the break.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
rotary engines. Regret.
And that was How Things Work with an Engineer. More of How Things Work can be found at facebook.com/automotive-ADHD.
Hey, remember, you can send those car sounds into the show. Yeah, check it out. Facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. If you're a new listener joining me on KRLN, you might not be familiar with that. Yeah, I play your car sounds right here on the radio. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. Of course, my name is Matt West, and you can submit your own car sounds, and I'll play them on the radio. And when you submit them right now through the month of April, at least, or until I run out of things, I'm going to be giving away the Automotive ADHD embroidered key tag, as well as, if you're watching on video, the Automotive ADHD, as heard on the Automotive ADHD show, sticker, which, of course, you can put on your laptop, you can put on your car, you can put it on your refrigerator. I don't care where you put it. It's your sticker. You can do what you want. But no matter where it is, it reminds people that you have questionable tastes in automotive programming on the radio and on the podcast. So, hey, there you go. And of course, it tells your friends that your car was on a radio show, which is pretty cool. How many people can say that? Again, Facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. You click on the pinned post at the top of the page and comment with your car sounds. And then once you do that, direct message me. Don't put it in the comments, but direct message me your address so I can ship you the keychain and the sticker. And oh, by the way, at the end of the month, I will do a drawing with all the car sounds I got in the month. And one person who sent those car sounds in will get a $25 parts store gift card. Every little drop in the bucket helps, whether you've got a project car or, hey, maybe it's your daily driver and you just need some windshield wipers or something. I'm here to help out, of course. So now another thing I got to get to here before we talk about Ford saving the universe, the Ineos Grenadier. I talked about it a few weeks ago on the show, and I didn't give it that much airtime, really. And I wanted to give you some additional thoughts because somebody recently tried to put one on Bring a Trailer. And if you're, make that Cars and Bids. I always say Bring a Trailer because it's usually Bring a Trailer, but this time it was Cars and Bids. And of course they were, thinking they were going to flip it for a hefty amount of cash, right? That's what they were thinking. Base model, well, not base, but as option, this one should be about $71,000-ish, give or take a little bit. And they were probably thinking, oh, we're gonna flip this thing and we're gonna flip it for, $100,000, $200,000, whatever. They're gonna do something crazy with it. And believe it or not, it didn't actually get that much money. They only made about $3,500 off of this, which I know it's a little bit of profit, but that barely really covers registration and taxes in most places. I mean, they basically, in my opinion on this thing, they basically broke even. Now, does that mean people don't like the Ineos Grenadier? I don't think so, not one bit, because the Ineos Grenadier is a interesting vehicle. Yes, it's a new manufacturer, but they are using parts from already existing manufacturers. They're using BMW drivetrains. They're using a lot of stuff. If you don't recall my show from a few weeks ago, and that's fine if you don't, but if you don't, what you got here is the Grenadier is a car made by the company Ineos, which they're not known for making cars, but they are very well known in the realms of manufacturing and industry and all of the above. That's what they do. They're a chemical supplier, petroleum. They do tons of stuff. They're a huge company. And so one of the heads of the company decided is that he wanted an old school Land Rover Defender, but a new one, right? Because all the old Defenders are old Defenders, they're all old. So he wanted a new one, with the classic design that it has. And he said, okay, tell you what, I'm going to go see if Land Rover will sell me the tooling to make the bodies for the old Defender. And he went to Land Rover and they said no. They told him to go pound sand. So instead of pounding sand, he pounded out some new tooling for his take on the Land Rover Defender, and there was some legal battle about it. Anyway, he actually won the court battle in terms of can he even sell these things, and yes, he can. And so Ineos started producing these machines that sort of look like old Defenders. Now, if you look at a Defender and a Grenadier side by side, you can tell they're actually very clearly different cars. But if you see either one of them on their own, is it a Grenadier? Is it a Land Rover? You know, to the uninitiated, you might not know the difference. And that's where these are kind of cool, though, because they bring some modern tech to a classic design. And I don't know what Land Rover was doing with the existing their actual Defender they're selling now, which really looks nothing like the old Defender. It's not nearly as rugged or utilitarian as the old Defender. It is more of a luxury SUV, which I get that Land Rover builds and sells more luxury-focused SUVs these days. That's what they do. But the fact is that segment, at least for this, is kind of untapped, right? Yeah, you've got more rugged SUVs in the Jeep Wranglers. You've got the Ford Broncos now. It's a booming segment, you know, and these are body-on-frame, dedicated off-roaders, right? And this is a booming segment. It's very good. Jeep has had this segment all to themselves for a good long while. And yeah, you've got Toyota with the 4Runner in there, and of course the new Land Cruiser that's coming out here. So I mean, you know, there's a little bit of competition there now, but there hasn't always been, and there's not nearly as much as the pickup truck segment or some other things. So this is a cool vehicle. I like it. It's, you know, at $71,000, it's priced somewhere around, if you were going to buy a Rubicon, nicely trimmed out Jeep Wrangler, you probably should cross shop it with the Grenadier, in all honesty. And the Grenadier, in my opinion, it's different. It's unusual. It's way more interesting than spending $70,000, $80,000 on a four-door Wrangler or a four-door Bronco. You know, and a good friend of mine personally bought a two-door Bronco recently, and it was almost $65,000, which leads me on to a topic here, which is that cars are just so expensive right now. New cars are really expensive, but the silver lining here is this Grenadier that someone tried to flip on Cars and Bids and only got a couple $1,000s, which I think is that the crazy days of car flippers and dealers selling things way over MSRP are kind of going to be behind us, or at least this is an early indication of that, because people, the way the economy is right now with inflation and you know, interest rates and things like that, it's very expensive to borrow money right now. And I think people are less inclined to make these impulsive decisions to buy certain vehicles at far over MSRP. I think people are a little less inclined to do that now. And again, that is a good thing. I like that. And why is that a good thing? I mean, because nobody wants to pay $100,000 over sticker for a Civic Type R. No one wants to pay $50,000 over sticker for a GR Corolla. And those are markups we have seen. Those are markups we truly have seen on these cars because dealers want to do that, or people after the fact buy them and flip them. And right now, I think the market isn't sustaining that anymore. People are keeping their money tighter. They're keeping it close to their chest. They're not spending it nearly as much. Now, granted, we do have social media influencers, you know, and that they're who I blame. They are who I blame. And they are predominantly in my opinion, the cause of some of these, I won't say predominantly, that's actually kind of unfair. That might be an exaggeration, but they are certainly responsible in some way to wanting to be the first to own a new vehicle, right? And a new vehicle comes out, doesn't matter what it is, say the MSRP is $50,000, manufacturer suggested retail price. The dealer's going to have a little bit on top of that, right? But even the MSRP is built in mind with dealers making a little bit of profit on top. It's built in mind with that. So, you know, the dealer's going to make some money there, several $1,000s anyway you cut that. But the dealers, what they were doing, especially we saw this after COVID, we saw this in the past couple of years, they were marking these cars up. So you got your $50,000 car. Okay, $110,000. Now, you might say, well, that's stupid. No one's going to buy it at $110,000. It's a $50,000 car. But the problem is people were buying it for $110,000. And a lot of them were these social media influencers whose income, whose entire subsistence exists off of making, you know, things on Instagram, being the first to have all of this. And that was giving, in my opinion, there's plenty of other factors, but I'm just throwing Instagrammers under the bus right now, under the over MSRP bus. But that being said, you know, that's part of it. And dealers get this, you know, in a free market, you know, the dealer would say, all right, I want $110,000. I'm asking $60,000 over sticker. and it's not going to sell. It's not going to sell. No one's going to buy it, right? They're not going to make any money. They're going to have to lower their price for someone to buy it and for them to make money. But the problem was people were buying it. So just even with this Grenadier, right? This is a hot car. This is interesting, especially in the enthusiast segment. People are starting to know what these are. People are also forgetting that there is a pickup truck version of the Grenadier, which I think is tremendously cool. And if you're watching on video, there's a picture of it up on screen. And for some godforsaken reason, we're not getting that pickup truck version. It's like someone at Ineos said, well, we want to sell some cars in the American market. Let's start with an SUV. Americans like SUVs. But guess what? What do we like more than SUVs? Pickup trucks. I mean, the F-150, number one selling vehicle in the country, is a pickup truck. Mid-size pickup trucks. That segment is on fire with the new Toyota Tacomas. You've got the Gladiators. You've got the Chevy Colorados, the Ford Ranger. You've got a lot of options in that mid-size category. And the Grenadier pickup truck, which is called the Quartermaster, by the way. The Quartermaster version is that one. And they are, I mean, it's a crime that these aren't coming to the U.S. Now, maybe they will. Maybe there's some safety and regulation nonsense holding this up, because that happens often. But for something like this to not be here when we are a pickup truck market, I mean, and not only that, not to mention the Quartermaster version tows more than the Toyota Tacoma. It has a higher payload than the Toyota Tacoma. And as far as I can tell, it would actually be class leading in both payload and towing for a mid-sized off-road truck. And to that end, I think that's incredibly cool. And Ineos, what are you doing? What are you doing? If there's anything to pay over sticker for, not that I would, but if there is, this pickup truck one. I'm just saying. So, hey, anyway, don't go anywhere. Ford is saving the universe and more. We're going to talk about Cummins as well. If you own a Cummins-powered vehicle, you probably want to hear about the latest that is going on and the recalls surrounding it too. We're going to get to all of that and more of your car sounds right here on Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere.
Did you know there's a rare but serious condition affecting 1 out of every million? Most are born with it, and despite decades of research, doctors struggle to find a cure. The truth is, thousands of people simply don't know what cars are. For those affected, things are grim, but recent developments show promising success. New clinical trials using breakthrough audio technology have shown a 69% improvement in patients with the most severe symptoms. Treatments vary, but one day we may see a cure. More information is available at throttlewarrior.com.
Here we are, rocketing on the Automotive ADHD show, heard on the radio in Southern Colorado and around the world as a podcast, and apparently right here in Palm Springs, California, doing the show on the road with you through the magic of technology. I'm sitting here in a hotel room, of course, talking to you in Southern Colorado on the radio, which is really cool when you think about it. Of course, you can also catch the video feed of this show on Rumble and YouTube. Really excited to have you on the show there. Those car sounds were from friend of the show, OBD1 Kenobi. Just a reminder, you can send those car sounds into the show, and it's a whole lot of fun. I play your car sounds on the radio. There's no reason not to do it. So go check it out, facebook.com/automotive ADHD. So I've been teasing this up a little bit here during the show, which is that Ford is going to probably, as we know it, save the universe. And this is important. I mean, Ford is really doing God's work here, because Ford's CEO Jim Farley has said that he wants to do is keep the V8 going no matter what. And hat tip Caleb Jacobs from The Drive, and Farley had a quote here, and this is really important. And I mean, this is truly earth-shattering stuff here because he says, quote, Mustang is going to celebrate its 60th anniversary coming up here. He goes on to say, a lot of our competitors have left. They've come and gone. We never did that. We have always been there with the Mustang. 60 years, and it's changed over time. We have EcoBoost, we have the Dark Horse now, and we're going to continue to invest. And he says, if we're the only one on the planet making a V8 affordable sports car for everyone in the world, then so be it. Mic drop, walk out of the room. Jim Farley, best CEO in the world, in the universe, perhaps. And I'm not being, I'm not trying to be, I'm not exaggerating this. I'm not being hyperbolic. I truly believe this. This is really incredible. And what else would we rather hear as car enthusiasts, right? This is so important. I mean, when you think of all the problems going on in the world, and this really solves this really and truly solves every single one of them. But I mean, really, when you think about it though, right? Chevy's not really making the Camaro. Dodge says that they're not going to continue the V8 in its current form, which we know how Dodge plays. If you listen to this show regularly, you know I like to use the so-called classic rock analogy when it comes to Dodge. And what I mean by that is you get your classic rock bands who say, hey, we're doing the end of the road tour. It's the last tour ever. Come to our final finale tour before we retire. And then everyone buys tickets. And then what happens is a couple years go by, 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. And then they say, hey, we need you to come to our reunion tour. It's the reunion tour, back on the road, and classic rock bands do this time and time again. Name any classic rock band. And I think this has happened. And anytime you hear the so-called reunion tour, I think you can interpret that as the we need more money tour because we're running out in retirement. That's probably what that means. But I don't think that's quite what Dodge is doing here. Dodge likes to tease you and say, hey, we're building the last one. These are the final ones, last production. And maybe there'll be a gap in production, but in a couple years, they'll come back with a new V8. They'll come back with, new stuff. Now, we know they're developing their turbo straight 6, the Hurricane, which has had some hit or miss issues lately, but it's a straight 6 turbo platform. Not the most American muscle type of thing that we normally think of, but to import fans and JDM fans, a straight 6 turbo is natural. I mean, there's straight 6 turbos in the most legendary, hyped, maybe overhyped JDM cars out there. But with Ford saying that we are sticking to the V8 through electrification, through hybridization, one way or another, they say they're going to keep a V8 powering the Mustang in some way. Now, I've said this before on the show. I don't think we're seeing a hard transition over to, electrification. And I don't even think we're going to see a full transition to electrification anytime soon. I'm an optimist on this. I think we're going to see the gas cars sticking around. Ideally, from a political and, geopolitical kind of standpoint, like around the world, we, being energy diverse is really important. Energy diversity is incredibly important, whether you're, if you're a country or even if you're a state or a smaller entity, having your sources of energy be from multiple things and being able to use that energy in multiple ways is important. We should not be banning one technology over another technology for so-called alleged environmental reasons. Because really, if you're really down on the environment, you're probably driving a hybrid instead. That's really the most efficient way to go. If that's really what you're doing in terms of environmental impact, one could say. But hey, you might need an electric car. Great, go buy an electric car. Maybe you need a diesel vehicle for long road hauling. Go buy a diesel. We're going to talk about diesels here later on in the show. Cummins with their huge environmental debacle. We'll get to that. But Ford here is doing something that Jim Farley's right. No other manufacturers are committing to keeping the V8. Even though I think Dodge will do it in some roundabout way. They're not saying that right now. He says, and this is important because this is business speak here. He says, and key word is invest. When he said we are going to continue to invest, that is business parlance for we're going to keep doing this and we're going to put money into it. Most importantly, we're going to put money into developing it and maintaining it in one way or another. And whether that is a hybrid V8, fine. But That's a hybrid V8. Think about it. Hybrid boost, V8 noise, and, high RPM, high torque, high horsepower, and that low electric grunt right off the line. That could be a pretty compelling sports car. I'm just saying. So these are good things. I like what Ford is doing, and this is good. So, props to Jim Farley. I've been critical of every manufacturer except Toyota because they can do no wrong. But typically, I've been critical of every manufacturer. So we got to call out bad when we see it, but we also got to we need to applaud the good when we see it too. And Jim Farley making a statement like this: we are going to continue investing in V8s. Paraphrasing there, but we're going to continue investing in V8s is a great thing to hear, and V8s are a great thing to hear as well. Just saying, you can't beat that V8 sound. There's no way to do it. You can't fake your way. You cannot fake your way into good V8 sounds. It's just not going to happen. Dodge, are you listening with those fake EV sounds? I'm just saying, listen closely. You can't fake your way to good V8 sounds. It's not going to happen. So, anyway, we got a little bit of time to get to this, and I might carry this over into the next segment here. But when was the last time you saw some funny highway signs? I see them pretty frequently driving on I-25 through Colorado and all over the place, really. I mean, they're the electric, the digital road signs, above the highways that have some message, buckle up or whatever. The signs are going to stay, but perhaps the funny messages on the signs are going away. There's no more funny signs, according to the feds, actually, according to the federal government, no less. And granted, I think we all can appreciate some of the humor on some of these funny highway signs, but typically it can be hit or miss. Humor is a thing that is very interesting and is interpreted in many different ways, depending on who you're talking to. And the feds are coming down on this. They're saying that we are implementing a federal mandate and new federal guidelines that you can't be funny on road signs anymore. And why would you want to be funny on road signs? Well, because some of these signs are clever and they do get posted to the internet. And I've got some strong opinions on this that you may not actually expect. And we're gonna get to all of that and more coming up here in just a minute here on the Automotive ADHD Show. I'm just saying though, this is one of those things that some people will be sad to see it go, and others will probably not care one bit whatsoever. They may not even read the road signs. I don't know about you, but anyway, hey, don't go anywhere. Of course, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. You can catch it on the radio. 3 great radio stations in Southern Colorado: AM 1460 The Answer, 91.7 KLZR, and 1400 KRLN. Don't go anywhere. We're playing you more of your car sounds right here after the break.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
There it is. Hey, there you go. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, playing more of your car sounds on the radio. That was Christopher's 1984 Mustang GT, Fox body Mustang, 302 cam, headers, intake, all of the good stuff you want on a Fox body Mustang. And remember, you can send those car sounds into the show, Facebook.com/automotive ADHD. Now, I got a couple things to get to here. We're in the last segment. I got stuff I got to talk about. We got to go quick now because we're talking about funny road signs. And to wrap things up, we're going to talk about Cummins, the current legal issues that Cummins is facing and what that means for you as a owner. So we're going to get to that here. But before the break, I was talking about road signs and how funny road signs are going away. And yeah, you've probably seen some of these. I've highlighted some of them here. This is from Virginia. I'll read a couple of the funny blurbs you might see on some of these electric road signs, which is the one here that stirred some controversy, one could say, was, quote, "Get your head out of your apps." APPS, apps, like phone apps. That's that one stirred some controversy there. There have also been some other funny ones like, "Oh, snap, your seatbelt." rim shot. There it is. I don't have a rim shot sound effect handy because of course I don't here, but that's okay. But all right. Okay. At best, hear me out. At best, you kind of cringed at those jokes. Yeah, they were funny. Okay, yeah, I get it. They were kind of funny. But at best, they are cringe-worthy jokes. And don't worry, because if you don't want cringe-worthy jokes, the government is here to help. And I'm not joking. They have literally made, the feds have implemented a new policy that is going to be implemented nationwide when it comes to funny road signs. And they have made, and I kid you not, a 1,100-page manual on how to not be funny with road signs. I'm not even kidding. They have 1,100 pages on how to not be funny. Does anything say federal government more than that? That is very government, in my opinion. And what does this mean for us? Well, I mean, it means that there's a few things this means, but one of the things, one of the guys, a traffic safety manager, and tying this into Colorado, my home state, Sam Cole, a traffic safety manager at the Colorado Department of Transportation. He's been one of the guys responsible for funny road signs, at least in the state of Colorado. And he said that he has some rules for road signs, right? He says, quote, you want to do something unusual, but that you should limit it to, a message being 6 or fewer words. Keep it clear, make it memorable. He says humor is a great way to grab people's attention and make it stick. But that being said, he says in the past, he might have gone overboard in previous years with road signs. So perhaps it is his fault the feds are cracking down on this. But no, not really. The fact is, I think, and I've never been one for more government regulation, especially 1,100 pages on how to not be funny on a road sign. That is next level right there. I can't even, I don't know. But regardless here, I appreciate humor. Humor is a great way to do things, but 99% of the time, think about it this way. Humor doesn't land, okay? People are going to spend more time looking at the sign, trying to figure out the message of the sign, especially if it's got some sort of millennial, millennial or a Gen Zer. If they wrote the message on the sign, anyone over the age of 40 or 50 is going to be looking at that sign, squinting and trying to figure out what on earth this combination of letters even means, right? And here's another problem, though, too, right? So you create one problem when you have jokes that don't land, which is that people are going to spend more time trying to figure it out. They're not going to get the joke. It's going to fly right over their heads, and whatever safety message you were trying to convey goes out the window. The other problem is if you are funny, if you are genuinely funny, you have created another issue, which is everyone will immediately, while they're driving, pull their phone out and start taking pictures of the funny road sign. And that is its own safety hazard. So actually, by being too funny, you've created another hazard. So, I mean, this is actually something where being too funny is actually a problem. So if you're neither too funny nor too serious, if you're somewhere in the middle, you come in perfectly in the middle there, well, then the joke just comes off as half-baked, and it might get a brief chuckle out of somebody, and then they'll immediately forget it, thus making the entire purpose of the sign, which was to get you to remember a safety message, entirely pointless and invalid. So here are your options. Bad jokes that no one finds funny and pop culture references that maybe 5 people will get, or at least a teenager would get. That's one option, right? Moderately funny signs, no one's going to remember them. They're not going to care about the safety message. Or if your joke is too funny, I mean, everyone dies. That's basically what happens. They pull out their phones and they crash and everyone dies. I mean, it's like that old Monty Python skit where they made a joke so funny that it literally killed anybody who heard it because they laughed themselves to death. And then they sent the joke out to the military to use against the Germans in World War II. It's a great skit if you look it up. Talking about humor, though, that no one gets, or dated references. I just made one right there. But honestly, you can't win. You can't win when it comes to funny road signs, and you shouldn't try. This is one of the weird things. I don't support increased government regulation, and the feds coming in making 1,100 pages on how to be unfunny is crazy to me. But also, I get where it's coming from. And you might find this as a surprise take from me, but I kind of agree that we shouldn't have the funny road signs. I agree that we should not have them because the signs are there to deliver safety messages on the road. I need to know if traffic is backed up in a certain area. I need to know if there's a crash that I need to get around or if the weather's bad up a mountain pass. I need to know these things as a driver, and a message like get your head out of your apps doesn't help. Again, apps, on your phone, in case anyone misheard that. But anyway, that doesn't help me be a safer driver because anyone who's got their head in their apps, for the record, is not going to see the sign anyway. So that leaves you nothing. I mean, come on. What can you do? This might be the one and only instance where I side with the feds on this. And I mean, come on. I don't get it. Maybe the government's actually trying to prevent the creation of a joke of mass destruction, a JMD. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to save the world. I don't know. Anyway, that being said, if you've seen some funny road signs, go ahead and take a picture of them. Send them to me on the Facebook. But don't do it while you're driving. Have your passenger take the picture because I just talked about how you shouldn't do that. So have your passenger take the picture. If they can't, just remember it and draw it out by memory or something after the fact. So that those are your options. But send them to me on the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. So anyway, we got to touch on this, and I might be out of time to touch on this right now. So we might actually do a bonus podcast here after the show. But Cummins was hit with a nearly $2 billion penalty for emissions, for so-called cheating emissions and creating a defeat device that is much like now the government's not being very clear. They're not saying exactly what Cummins did. But the defeat device is clearly software related. It's clearly something with the ECU, the tune, much like it's to be speculated, the Dieselgate incident that happened with Volkswagen a few years ago, which is that, the vehicle would know when it's being given an emissions test, and it would then, change the tune or do something so it would pass the test and then immediately revert to a different setting after the emissions test, right? And so Cummins has allegedly committed some sort of crime against the EPA when it comes to this. And they're not giving us a lot of information. Again, they're not telling us what the defeat device is, how the software is doing it, but Cummins was hit with one of the biggest environmental fines ever, $1.65 billion fine. And this means tons of recalls and issues for owners of Ram trucks. They're saying you got to bring your truck into the dealership. They're going to flash it with a new tune. We don't know what's going on entirely with that. So one thing I'm curious of, we're going to touch base on this more on another show and maybe a podcast exclusive. If you have a Ram truck and you get that recall, how does it change things? Do you even notice? Let me know. Facebook.com/automotive-ADHD. Now, hey, don't miss a minute of this show. Lots of great ways to catch it on the radio in Southern Colorado, YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, anywhere fine shows and mine are downloaded. I will see you next week here on the Automotive ADHD Show.